When I met him, he smelled like lemon and new books. He wore his charm like a coat that fit everything he wanted to be. He even said my name like a confession. He said I was the rare thing he'd been missing, as if I had always belonged in the hollow of his life. That first month was worship. He idolized the way I tucked my hair behind my ear, as though the movement were a secret he had discovered. He recorded the creak of my laugh and replayed it with a reverence I'd never known. He learned the shape of my hands and traced them on the back of his neck like prayer. It was the way he praised me that taught me to wait for praise. It was the way he corrected me that taught me to flinch. At first, the corrections were surgical, almost tender. "You should smile like this," he said, and turned my mouth with 2 fingers. "Say it softer, or wear the blue dress." Each small demand came with an embrace, so fervent that for a moment the wound felt like comfort. But every comfort was a lesson. There was only one right way to be, and that was his way. He kept a ledger. He called it his notes, and when I once found the book under a stack of film magazines, he laughed and took it back like a child retrieving a toy. Later, when I learned how it worked, I almost wished I had burned it then. The ledger was not full of love poems. It detailed routines, weaknesses, and thresholds. It catalogued things I did that made him uneasy, a laugh that was a hair too long, a text from a friend that took 1 minute to answer, or an outfit he had not approved. Next to each entry, he had tiny, clinical marks, or a number that indicated how much of me to shave away in order to make me submissive again. He taught me to apologize before I'd done anything wrong. He taught me to find fault in myself the way others find faults in furniture. He praised my shrinking in private and showed me to other people, like a prize he had tamed. "She's perfect now," he would tell friends, and the word perfect was not a compliment but an observation of his craftsmanship. But behind the praise, he sharpened new weapons. He began mocking my appearance, not in fury, but casually, as though it were mere fact. "Do you know how ridiculous you look?" He'd murmur. "No wonder they laugh at you at work." Each insult burrowed deep, festering into my skin. Then the blackmail began. He stole my phone when I slept, reading through my messages like scripture. He sent emails to my managers in my name, twisting words, planting doubt. Once he fabricated a complaint that I had been unstable during a meeting. When I begged him to stop, he only smiled and said, "One word from me and your career disappears. You should be grateful I'm keeping you in check." I gradually learned to apologize even when I had done nothing. He would circle me for hours, hurling insults, mocking my insecurities, until my voice cracked and I whispered, "I'm sorry." That word became my cage. It was the only currency he would accept to stop the torment. Sleep started to leave me in thin, hungry slices. He would insist we talk until midnight about nothing and everything, and when I yawned he would smile as if my fatigue were an offering. He began leaving small marks on me, a thumb pressed to the soft underside of my wrist, or a red line across my collarbone, and told me he liked to map me. "So we both know," he said with grave calm. "So you can't pretend later that things didn't happen." He chuckled ominously. When I tried to cover the marks, he showed me photographs he'd taken of my bare shoulders, and I learned to keep my sleeves long, even in the heat. It was not just control, it was architecture. He dismantled me, like a house he planned to renovate. The first real horror was what he did to my voice. When I argued, he would softly mimic me, turning my sentences into jokes at my expense. He would post those clips on his Instagram, smiling as he replayed my words with a laugh track. My voice grew small and thin, the edges worn away by repetition and ridicule. Soon I would catch myself rehearsing phrases, trimming my speech to his tolerance. By then he had started sewing. It was a stupid, beautiful thing at first. a needle and thread when he said I spoke too loud, that I needed gentling. I'll sew it shut so it rests, he murmured. He meant metaphorically, he said. He meant to make me quiet, polite, and submissive. But metaphors are tools. Tools become instructions. One night, after a fight where my face was a map of red and his voice a smooth river of accusation, I woke with a phantom tug on my lips and the taste of copper at my tongue. In my mirror there were faint lines like sutures, not real flesh, but lines that looked like what you'd imagine if someone had tried to stitch speech to a softer, acceptable shape. My reflection smiled politely at me in the way he wanted, and I recoiled from myself as though I'd seen a stranger wear my skin. He learned to weaponize small cruelties into rituals. On laundry day he would separate my clothes, taking those he deemed inappropriate and replacing them with bland, gray things from the back of the closet. He used hair clips to rearrange my bangs until I wore his vision of me. He put my phone in a metal box sometimes, and when I panicked he would hand it back with a casually cruel smile and say, "See? You were fine without it." Friends evaporated like breath in winter. He'd call them at odd hours and tell cleverly packaged lies. "She's unstable, please do not engage with her." Or "She's so dramatic," he told another. After a while, text threads grew thin. When I tried to step outside and seek variation, the world created static that hissed into my ears. I began to wonder if the silence around me was my fault. That was the point. He folded the room until I took the shape he wanted. The body remembers. The body keeps accounts even when the mind is scabbed and half blind. My hands began trembling even when he wasn't near. Mirrors betrayed me. My eyes looked like they belonged to someone who spent nights awake. I slept with a radio on to drown out the memory of his voice, the way he could turn concern into mockery in one breath. I labored through days like a machine someone else had wound. And then the ledger stopped being private. He began writing notes and placing them in my pockets, in my shoes, on the inside of my cookbook. They were small, childish things, rude, mean, insulting comments, and when I tried to throw them away, he would find them like some scavenger god. When I asked him how he managed to know where to look, he tilted his head and said, "You always hide things. I like to find treasure." There was a room in the apartment that I was never supposed to enter. He called it the study and kept the door locked. He said it contained important work that, if exposed, would ruin him. I think now he called it that because it sounded grown up, respectable, like the cavity of some respectable machine. One afternoon, curiosity peeled at me. I picked the lock with a hairpin, the way you open a secret you're not allowed to keep, and I slid inside. It smelled of dust and lemon and something else. In the desk lamp's circle, there were piles of things, receipts, hotel keys, a calendar with dates circled in tight black ink, but most of all there were journals. Pages filled with lists and sketches, illustrations of faces with checkboxes, diagrams of my reactions to pressure, notes on a week's worth of my behaviors and how to soften them. There were also photographs of me, but not the flattering kind. He had snapped me off guard, my hair in a mess, my eyes sleepy. Then he had cropped and printed those photos and annotated them with cruel, methodical comments. Beside each one, a score, beside each score, a number, tolerance 3, crying threshold 42 minutes. At the bottom of one page there was a tacked note, end goal, total compliance, tools, shame, exhaustion, praise. My stomach turned hot. He had not merely loved me. He had experimented on me. He was a scientist whose specimens were human hearts. When I confronted him that night, his smile was a blade. He softened his voice into the same gentle timbre that had once sunk me. "Are you looking through my things?" He screamed, as if I had betrayed him. "This is why I do this, so you stop being reckless." He growled, "You need structure." He reached for my hand, and when he touched me it was electric with ownership. "You're so easily lost," he whispered. "I am your map." After that, the nightmares were never fully my own. He began to stage them. One night he led me into the bathroom with the lights on. He whispered that I had become spoiled, that sacrifices must be made. He laid me down against cold tile and brought out his needles, not metal this time, but words so sharp they cut as deep. He whispered all my weaknesses like an incantation. "You are ugly, ungrateful, stupid, replaceable." Then he pressed his lips to my ear and hissed, "Say you're sorry." I screamed. He recorded it. When the neighbors finally called the police, after hearing me cry through the walls, he was ready. He opened the door with calm hands and a softened smile. He showed them emails he had sent from my phone, messages he had crafted in my voice, proof that I was unstable. He painted me as hysterical, delusional, dangerous to myself, and they believed him, because the marks on my body were hidden. The stitches in my voice were invisible. The ledger was tucked away. When the officers left, he leaned in close and whispered, "See, even the world thinks you're broken. Without me, you'd be nothing." And in that moment, I believed him. That was his final victory. But mirrors don't lie. In mine, I saw what he had carved out of me, a shell that flinched, apologized, obeyed, a hollowed girl, a perfect specimen of his craft. And deep in my reflection, behind the stitched smile and the vacant eyes, I saw his face grinning back.
Relax.